can't stress enough how important it is in that plan to have very concrete objectives, which you're trying to reach with that funding. I'm Tom Weaver, and I'm an American, a geneticist who's been in this country, in the UK, for 30 years. And I'm a founder and CEO of PetMedix, which I can tell you about. But over the last 30 years, I've been involved in genomics and genetics, which is an amazing technology, and something the UK and Cambridge and Oxford and London, the various clusters, have been hugely important in developing technologies, and importantly, a lot of the startup companies and ecosystem of life science and now more tech, digital spin-offs of that kind of life science applications. So it's a great place to be. Happy to be here.
Great. And just before we dive into it, if you could give us a bit of an overview as to what PetMedix does specifically.
Yeah, so we're a biotech company, which I'm sure many people are familiar with what biotechs are, but we are a biotech with a difference. So we're all about developing really new and better treatments for companion animals, and those are our dogs and cats, for those of you who don't know. Unfortunately, our pets suffer from really the same diseases that we do. We just don't have really good enough treatments for them. We don't have the kind of drugs that are available in humans. So for example, so my background is oncology. I did a PhD in oncology many moons ago. There's more than, in the States, I think there's more than 90 million dogs. And each year, 4 million are going to present with cancer. And this is going to account, so if you have a dog that's over 10 years old, 50% chance they're going to die of cancer. And so it's a really important disease. And also, it's actually quite interesting is that the incidence of cancer in dogs is at least 10 times higher than the level seen in humans. And we don't really understand the reasons for this, but it's important, I think, example that diseases, such as cancer represent a huge area of unmet medical need in vet medicine. So you contrast that with human health, where scientists in biotech and universities have made huge progress in treating diseases like cancer by creating innovative drugs. And a particular type of drug that we're working with are called monoclonal antibodies. Now, this technology is awesome. It was invented in Cambridge, another great result for the scientific community in Cambridge. It was a Nobel Prize given in the 1970s for the discovery of monoclonal antibodies. But over the last few years, sort of variations of this kind of antibody technology has been applied and has really revolutionized human health. Okay, so 7 of the top 10 selling drugs in human are antibody-based, based in some form of antibody. But this just isn't the case for pets, okay? So at PetMedix, what we're all about is creating and validating really the first and only platform that can generate these monoclonal antibodies that are species-specific, really high-quality therapeutic treatments for use in dog and cats for these diseases of huge importance. And so we've successfully developed that. So we're 2 years old. I can go into more details about it, I guess. But we've created this platform, we've validated it, and we're now actually deploying it and are undertaking multiple in-house drug discovery programs to treat really important diseases like cancer, inflammation, and pain. So and the only reason we can do it is because of even though it's a biotech company in companion animals, it's based on the genomic understanding that we have both for dogs and cats and mice and humans. So using the genomics understanding, we can use the tools that we've come up with in human health and really apply them and translate them into animal health.
And is that what makes it feasible? Because immediately what jumps to mind is this is all still relatively new information technology treatments in the human world. So with that comes higher costs. So is it just that transferable knowledge that makes this feasible to be able to do it right now for animals as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important question, and there are huge differences, and of course, there's lots of reasons behind it. I think the most important reason is the animal health corporates. First of all, just remember, drugs are developed in animal health in a similar way as human health. You have to go through regulatory approval. You have to go through the whole drug discovery process, which in human health is extremely long and very risky and extremely expensive. The same kind of is true in animal health. And I think the perception early on is with these new technologies like monoclonal antibody technologies is that to be able to do that in animal health would be extremely expensive and hard to do. And it's true to some extent in that you can't just take a human monoclonal antibody and put it into a dog or a cat. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't have the right specificity. It's also from a different species. It would be rejected. You actually have an immune response against the drug, and it wouldn't work. So that means that you have to go through the effort, the hard technology, to make those dog-specific or cat-specific monoclonal antibodies, and that's hard to do. And that's what our USP at PetMedix, we came up with a really, really cool way and powerful way of doing that. So I think that was a big barrier for the animal health to go into it. The other thing was just, is it affordable? So, if you look at human medicines, Humira, my mom was on Humira. Many people in this call probably been on it. They'll be spending, tens of thousands, maybe more dollars per year for their treatment or for their cancer treatment. Some of these monoclonal therapies can be even hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and that's just unaffordable in animal health. So I think that put a lot of the pharma companies off developing this. But actually, if you look at the drug discovery paradigm in animal health, you can actually do it relatively quickly and relatively affordably, a lot less, at least 50 times less cost than human health. And so when you start looking at that, and actually the way of producing the antibodies can be done quite cost effectively, we believe at PetMedix that you can actually come up with a treatment in the kind of hundreds of dollars, up to $1,000 for a treatment for one of these diseases in animal, which is very affordable in vet medicine. And that's actually been proven. So there's a drug, really one of the only drugs and the leading drug in animal health called Cytopoint, which is for the treatment of atopic dermatitis, scratching. It's a monoclonal antibody, and it's very effective, and it's affordable. So it's about $1,000 a year for a treatment dose, and I think that demonstrated to the whole pharmaceutical industry and animal health that you can actually, there are technologies out there, and it can be done affordably. But at PetMedix, we've obviously come up with a way that is really cool that's going to do that for medicines in a very fast and affordable way.
As with many biotech companies, to get to that point as you are now, where it's affordable for the end consumer, there are massive upfront costs for those developing it. So talk to me a bit about the funding process that you've been through to make this all a reality.
Yeah. And there's, nothing really unusual about our story. It'll be very common to many of the startups out there. This is the fifth company that I've been involved in, and it's sort of been a similar adventure to the other companies that I've been involved in. All the other ones were involved in human health. This is the first time I've been involved in animal health, but it's no different. So the first thing, certainly in my experience, when you come up with a great idea, right? And it's usually, I'm a people person. So for me, it's knowing through your network somebody who's usually smarter than you, certainly smarter than me. They've got a great idea. In our case with PetMedix, it was the founder is Alan Bradley, who I've known for 20 years, who's just a stellar scientist. He's invented many really cool genome-based technologies in mouse genetics around tools for identifying novel sort of phenotype-genotype interactions in the mouse, including immunology. And so he came up with the idea of essentially putting a human immune system into a mouse to generate these monoclonal antibodies as therapeutics. It's amazing technology that he was able to invent. Anyway, I've known Alan for a long time, and he came up to me and said, because I just stepped down from being the CEO of the last company I was involved in. And Alan said, oh, Tom, I got this great idea. I want to do these monoclonal antibodies for dogs. He had his other company that he did, I should have said, was called Kymab, which is the human therapeutics company based on this technology. Very successful, super cool company called Kymab, and very famous in Cambridge. And so when Alan came to me, he said, Tom, I want to do Kymab for dogs. I thought, wow, what a great idea. I get to work with this amazing scientist who I really respect. And I know I knew a little bit about the technology. This is really cool. I know nothing about animal health, but I think it's a great idea. So that's where you start. It's that idea that what if, let's do this, back of an envelope. Let's do Kymab for dogs. And so then the next stage is, okay, where are we at? What do we need to make this a reality? And that's a combination of people, again. So can we get a team together to make a success of it? And can we get the cash together? That's blindingly obvious. But, and I've done this before, the key is that you've got the inventor scientist, in Alan's case here, but Alan has a really excellent lab. So he was at the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute, which is we call the Genome Center here in Cambridge. He had a large lab, and he had individuals who were working on this project in his lab already. And so the idea of PetMedix was to really identify and bring these key founding scientists, including a chap who's doing his PhD. His name's Jolene Martin, very talented student who finished his PhD and wanted really to take the technology out as a company. Let's take these founding scientists out of the lab and create this company to make this idea a reality. And then in terms of getting the cash together, it's the usual. It's a lot of hard work. You have to put a very solid business plan together, really understand what it is you're asking the money for. I can't stress enough how important it is in that plan to have very concrete objectives, which you're trying to reach with that funding, so that your use of funds really are very focused, very achievable, and you can demonstrate through either the team that you're bringing in or your previous experience that you can deliver those targets. And of course, they add value to the company. So each one of those things that you're going to do with that initial funding is going to be a significant value inflection to increase the value of your company. So as the investors, from an investor's perspective, oh, you're going to use my money wisely, and you're going to create a company that's significant value. For a biotech company, of course, we're not generating sales, right? So that's quite different. So we're not actually, the metric isn't going to be, oh, in a year's time or 18 months' time, we're going to have X number of users, this number of invoices going out, this amount of sales. It's more, this is the scientific program, believe the vision in the long term. This is what we can advance in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. So we were able to do that successfully. We raised 10 million pounds and launched in March 2019, so almost exactly 2 years ago. Based on that approach, it was a highly successful raise. It was the largest Series A in animal health, put us on the map, certainly in the United States. We had a great set of investors, which we could talk about, how we found those, et cetera. But basically, really, really good investors who have, not only brought the money, but really the experience in animal health and the networking, which is also really, really important.
Just listening to you then, we talk to a lot of founders who are from this complex tech world. So whether it be, say, from health or space exploration or some of these different areas where they are so deep into the technology, they aren't necessarily commercially minded people as you are. So you clearly have sort of both sides to it. So what's your advice for people looking to start a business who are very tech minded, but maybe don't have the commercial side of it?
Yeah, that's really funny you should say that, because I don't consider myself commercially minded, which is probably not what you want to hear from a CEO, but I'm a scientist. If you ask me, Tom, what are you? I'm a scientist. When you fill out your census, occupation, I say scientist. I don't say CEO. I'm a scientist, and none of the companies that I've been involved with would have gotten anywhere if there wasn't really solid science or technology behind it. That's absolutely essential. And for that, I call it the 2 to 50 company. So those your Series A, A plus, B plus, et cetera. it's got to be around that. It's got to be around the science and really having something that is unique, that's got a lot of intellectual property, that's defensible. That's really, really important, and that is, you know, scalable, all that kind of stuff. But also that, you know, is going to provide a solution which there isn't one out there yet, you know, and you're different from everybody else. Those are the questions you're going to get asked by your investors. And that, so to me, that's the kind of commercial side of it. You know, you really know how you're distinct from the competition, you know, what you're doing that's making a difference. So in our case, so I was going on about, you know, there's so many areas in veterinary medicine which have unmet needs. You know, the drugs that out there just frankly don't work. So if you can come up with a drug that actually is disease modifying, the market might not even be that big right now. It can get huge if you have a drug that actually works. So again, Cytopoint is again the only monoclonal that's out there. When Cytopoint came in, you know, in the atopic dermatitis market, was only estimated at the time, this is like 2014, 2015, it was about a $50 million a year market in the United States. And the existing treatment was a topical steroid. It doesn't really matter. It was kind of an ineffective treatment. Well, it was okay, but you know, it was a small market. Zoetis, which is the you know, market leader in this space in animal health, and who saw this opportunity, they came in first with a JAK inhibitor called Apoquel, but then they came in with Cytopoint, this monoclonal antibody, and it totally changed things. It worked. The drug works. Not perfect. There's a lot of improvements that can be made, but it really did make a difference. And suddenly, that $50 million a year market is now $1 billion a year market. You know, 5 years later, whatever. So that's, you know, for me, that's the commercial sense. You know, you have that opportunity. But at this early stage, it's, you know, don't put off, if you got a great technology that you have and a belief in, and you've got a team that you put together. It's like putting together a band or a football team. You know, hey, go for it. Don't necessarily worry so much about the commercials.
And what's next for PetMedix? What are the big goals over the next year or two?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question. So we are kind of in transition. So we've spent the first 2 years, and you call it our Series A period, really validating our platform, which is really important. This is again common to a lot of companies. You know, you got your platform, but then we're actually deploying the platform in our case for antibody discovery. So we've got multiple discovery programs, and we now have lead candidates for the different indications based on the work on that platform. So we're moving away from this validation and discovery phase to our next phase, our Series B phase, and we're raising money for that. It's really transitioning to become more of a product development company. So sort of growing up in the sense that we're now focusing on the product that eventually will be a drug that we can sell and invoice. And that's, you know, in biotech, that means things like, you know, sort of the manufacturing, early stages of manufacturing of your product, and doing regulatory studies, clinical studies, which you need to do in a very you know, organized and defined way to meet certain standards by the regulatory agencies. In our case, in the United States, it's you know, the FDA and the USDA that look at your process and say, yeah, it's good. It says, you know, it's doing what you're saying it's going to do. It's the data really is sound, and now we can give you a license to go and sell it. So we're in that second phase.
Interesting. And for those listening, where can they find out more about both yourself and the business?
Well, I guess the website, we're a .co.uk, so petmedix.co.uk. But we do have, I guess, the social media through LinkedIn and all that. I'm old, you can tell from my beard. I'm not very good at that sort of thing, but I'm sure it's out there. In fact, I'm excited. We just got told today we're finalists for Best New Company in Cambridge, one of the local newspapers. So that's fantastic. You get recognition. I think it's really important for animal health. Everyone's talking about human health, and with COVID and the pandemic, it's a really important area, obviously. But let's not forget about you know, our companion animals. They're a really important part of our lives. You know, they're even more important, I think, now in the pandemic as companions at home for people who are lonely and looking at a lot of what are called pet parents. They don't have children, they have animals. And to be honest, I think we've ignored ignored their welfare, at least in the sense of creating newer and better drugs. So I think that's really quite an important thing. So I'm glad we're doing it.